You can absolutely make music for free, and as you'll see with some of these programs, just because they're free doesn't mean you're going to have to compromise. In this video, I'm going over some of the most popular free DAWs available for Windows. I'll also have some bonus ones near the end and some quick advice to help you choose the right one for you. Now, first up on the list is Traction Waveform Free. The positives of this one: it allows you to have unlimited audio, instrument, and MIDI tracks. So unlimited tracks, it comes with all of your essential effects for mixing a track, but you can also bring in third-party plugins as well. These are effects and instruments from other companies. It has a modern workflow that can really be quick. It gives you multiple ways to work with MIDI, like the piano roll, step sequencer, you can record it in. Plus, you can even use your computer keyboard like a basic MIDI keyboard if you want. It can also get even more advanced if you start to get into all of the custom racks and that sort of thing. It's a very impressive free DAW. Now let's look at some of the negatives of Waveform Free. Well, my biggest negative with it at the moment is, as of version 13, they took away the ability to return to start on stop. You can still do this in the Pro version, but not in the free one, and this is just a small little thing. You can absolutely still make music in there. Another negative for some users might be the user interface and the workflow, as it's more of a modern design. So if you're used to another program that has a more traditional workflow, then you may not like this one, or it's just going to take you a little bit of time to get used to it. But Waveform Free can be great for musicians and producers wanting to make any style of music. It's extremely versatile. All right, now let's move on to a free digital audio workstation with a more traditional workflow. This is Pro Tools Intro. Now, some of the pros of Pro Tools Intro are that you get the same core program and some of the same core effects that have been used on thousands of hit songs and hit albums. This is the same Pro Tools that you'll find in a Pro Studio, just there are some limitations that we'll look at when we get to the negatives. Another pro are the included plugins. They are excellent, but this also allows you to bring in other plugins that you might buy or find for free. And another pro is its limitations, because you might find some inspiration in trying to make a track within the limitations. It's something that I always try to do, and I really enjoy it. Now let's look at some of the negatives of Pro Tools Intro. And the major one here is the track limitations. You can have 8 audio tracks, 8 instrument tracks, and 8 MIDI tracks. So if you're a solo musician or producer like me and you make some simple rock, pop, country, or whatever type of music, you can likely stick within those limitations. I know I can if I use a drum plugin and not recording an actual drum kit. And another negative here is if you do decide that you want to go to one of the bigger tiers of Pro Tools, it's either a subscription or a fairly high-priced perpetual license. The next free DAW that we'll look at is Universal Audio's Luna. And the pros of Luna are that it allows you to have unlimited tracks. That's instruments, audio, buses, whatever. You can have unlimited tracks in this one. You can also bring in third-party plugins. So effects and instruments that other manufacturers create, you can bring those in here. There is an included instrument. It's called Shapes, and it's a really nice instrument, has tons of sounds in there. There's also an included tape saturation, and it's an excellent one as well. I actually paid for that one before I got into Luna, and I still use it all the time. Another pro of Luna is that it has a familiar traditional workflow, but there's also some modern features in there to help speed things up. Now, some of the negatives that you might find in the Luna DAW are it has limited MIDI features, and this may not be great for electronic styles of music. You also need to have an iLok account. That's free to set up, but it is another thing that you're going to have to set up. And you'll need to have an audio interface that has ASIO drivers for it, which should actually be looked at as a positive because you want to use ASIO drivers on Windows for the lowest latency. And another negative that some users might find is that you can only use VST3 plugins in it, so no VST2 plugins. All right, this next free DAW may or may not be available by the time you watch this. It's Cakewalk by BandLab. Now, originally, it looked like they were going to phase this one out when they released their newer versions called Cakewalk Sonar and Cakewalk Next, but then they changed the wording on their site and it's still a little unclear if they're going to be keeping this free version around for good or maybe just a little bit longer. So here's some pros of Cakewalk by BandLab. You can have unlimited audio, MIDI, and instrument tracks in there, unlimited buses, whatever. This is an unlimited DAW. It comes with some okay effects and instruments, but you can bring in plugins from other companies, no problem. Another pro is the channel strips on every track. They're really nice to use, and they can reduce the number of plugins that you need to add to a track. It's a very deep program with tons of features in it. It even has a clip launcher feature that gives you a workflow that's similar to Ableton Live. Now, some of the negatives of Cakewalk by BandLab are the user interface is a little dated and it may not have the greatest resolution on some newer monitors and laptop screens. Some newer users may find it a little overwhelming at first because of how expansive this program is, but just know that you don't have to use all of the fancy stuff that's in there. It can be used as a very basic program as well. So who is Cakewalk by BandLab great for? Well, anyone. It can work with any style of music. It offers so much for free, and I can see why it may not be free for much longer because this thing is excellent. But they say if you get it while it's free, then you're going to be able to continue using it. Now, from one of the most advanced digital audio workstations on the list to one of the most basic ones. This is Audacity. And the pros of this one is that it's super easy to start recording into it. You just hit the record button and away you go. Press stop, and if you want to add another track to layer sounds, you just hit record again and it's going to record on another track. Very, very easy. You can have tons of audio tracks in there. You can even use VST3 effects in Audacity now. Some of the negatives of this one, it's extremely basic when it comes to multi-track recording and music making. It doesn't have MIDI capabilities, so there's no virtual instrument usage in here. It doesn't use ASIO, so latency could be an issue, and generally it just lacks a lot of features that you would like in a music making program. It's great for audio recording and editing, but it's fairly limited in terms of being a complete in-the-box music making program. However, there are some users that absolutely love it and they make songs in it all the time, which is why I still include it on this list. The next free DAW on the list is LMMS. And where the previous one lacked MIDI capabilities, this one is all MIDI. So there's no audio recording in this one. You can export your virtual instrument sounds to audio files and then maybe bring that into another program if you want. So some of the pros of this one, some users really like the workflow plus the MIDI programming and editing capabilities. Some even compare it to FL Studio. Negatives of this one, there's no support for recording audio. And another negative is there are some users that have reported stability issues when bringing in certain plugins. All right, now here's a free digital audio workstation that's new on my list because I just kind of discovered it, and that's DaVinci Fairlight. And this one is part of DaVinci Resolve. You just have to switch over to the Fairlight screen and you can use it similar to a DAW. Pros of Fairlight, you can have up to 2,000 tracks, which is pretty much unlimited. Another pro is that because it's a video editing program, it handles video really well. So if that's something you're looking for, this one can do it. And it comes with some effects, but you can also use third-party VST plugins or AU plugins in there as well. Negatives of Fairlight. Well, you can use virtual instruments in Fairlight, but you're not going to be working with MIDI clips. So you're not going to be recording MIDI. You'll just have to record it as audio onto another track within Fairlight. So who is this one for? Well, if you do music for film or you need to sync up music to video, this one can be great for that. If you're just mainly focusing on recording audio and you don't mind the kind of awkward virtual instrument workflow, then you can make whatever type of music you want in this one. This next free DAW feels like and looks like a premium paid for DAW, but there are some limited features that you may not notice right away. This is Zane Podium. So you can use this just like any other typical digital audio workstation. You can record audio and MIDI, use virtual instruments and edit MIDI. You can add effects and mix just like a normal regular DAW. But in this free version, it has multiprocessing disabled for plugins. And this means that if you have a computer that has multiple cores on the processor, you're only going to be using one core for processing plugins. And this will limit the number of plugins that you can use at a time. If you want to get rid of that limitation, then you'll have to purchase a license. Now, here's a free DAW that's geared more towards DJs and electronic music producers. This one is Akai's MPC Beats. And we'll start with the pros. If you're familiar with the hardware MPC, this one has a very similar workflow to that. You have your 16 pads that can trigger loops and samples, and some users might love that. It has 80 effects plus some instruments built into it, and you can also bring in third-party VST plugins if you want even more. And it has a nice piano roll for recording and editing MIDI. Now, negatives of MPC Beats are track limitations. So you can have up to 8 MIDI tracks per project and only 2 stereo audio tracks per project. So you are limited there. Also, some users may not like the MPC workflow. So who is this one great for? Well, DJs and electronic musicians that love working on an MPC, and they want that in software. And this next free DAW is similar to MPC Beats. This is Serato Studio. It's fairly straightforward beat-making software for beginners, DJs, and even more advanced users that like this workflow. It has a simple user interface. It makes it quick and easy to start making beats in it. You do get a selection of pre-made drum patterns in there to help inspire you, and of course you can edit them or come up with your own, and it's very easy to do that in the step sequencer. You also get a selection of drum loops, drum kits, instruments, and effects. Now, some negatives in this free version is that there's some limitations. You can only have 1 audio track, 4 decks, and 4 scenes. But you can still create great beats and do DJ edits while working within these limitations. Also, in the free version, you can only export to MP3. So those are the main ones on my list. Now let's just have a quick look at some bonus ones. And the first one is Z-Rhythm Free. And in the free version, you can have up to 25 tracks. You might want to check this one out. Another one that you might want to check out is Steinberg Sequel 3. And the reason why I'm mentioning this one is because it was a paid DAW, so it's an excellent full program, but then they made it free. But there is a big issue with this one. It's 32-bit and it only uses 32-bit VST3s. So if you're still on a 32-bit operating system, you might want to check this one out because it might be the best one for you. Another one worth mentioning here, but is not free, is the Reaper DAW. So why is it worth a mention? Because a lot of people treat it like it's free due to the fact that there's a 60-day demo, but it continues to work even once the demo's up. There's just a little bit of a nag screen that pops up for 5 seconds every time you start up the program. If you do like Reaper and you want to use it all the time, a license is just $60 for personal use, and if you do purchase it, it really helps to support them to continue to develop this great digital audio workstation. Now, if you're just getting into music production and making music on your computer, then what I really recommend is downloading a few of these programs. So a few of them that might have interested you, download those ones, give each one a good try. Maybe try making a little track in each one of those and see which one you like the best. And then stick with that one and try to learn it as best as you can. That way you'll know the program and you can just focus on making your music. And that's what you want to get to. You want to get to a point where you're not trying to figure out how to use the program and do different things in the program. You just want to make music. The big differences, other than the limitations that you might find in some of these, but the big differences in all of these programs are the workflow and the user interface, plus some of the included plugins are different. Other than that, they all do the same thing. They allow you to make music in them. So just look at them as a tool. And when somebody's listening to your music, they're not listening to it thinking, what digital audio workstation did they make this track in? They're just listening to your music. And when you are working with these programs, you may want to add some free plugins. And you can check out some of the best free ones that are available by clicking this video right here. And if you like this video that you just watched, please give it a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. For Audio Tech TV, I'm Zane. Keep creating. Fist bump. Thumbs up.